I'll show you what that looks like. That will look like this if it comes up.
Oh, split screen. I like that.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
Looks good. You can, you can.
That's great. Let me share it.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Hi. Oh, my mic's not up. Hi, everybody. I'm here. This is Andrew Talcott. My dear friends of mine, Lauren Grogan, sitting across from me. This is the Totally Local podcast, which now has a website, totallylocal.com. Totallylocalpodcast.com. I have it on the graphic here.
Cool.
And if you have any questions, throw them in. But I'm gonna turn off my mic here, and I'm gonna let my man here take it away.
We're gonna go for it. All right, guys. I'm just sharing this because that's what you do in this day and age. All right, now I'm closing Facebook. Hello, everyone. This is Totally Local Podcast. We're here once again, and I am so happy to be able to sit down with Lauren Grogan, who is a holistic health coach and yoga teacher. But you do more. It's more coachy, healthy stuff now, right? less yoga. Classroom yoga stuff and more, are you working one-on-one with people? I'll let you talk.
Since having my son, I used to teach many, many classes in a studio a week, and since having my son, I actually strictly do privates, and then I'm always doing corporate wellness, so I'm always teaching corporate yoga as well, but I have not been teaching in studios, and I certainly miss it, but I'll get back to it within a couple years or so, but I'm loving teaching private yoga.
It's more, it's obviously more hands-on and more personal. Not everyone is at the same stage with yoga, so you get to really focus. And it's funny because I hear that from a lot of, people that have, taught yoga, were involved in, classes in this area, which is, it's a beautiful community. And they kind of drift away from doing the classes because, obviously it's, the schedule, you have a family now, so you can't really commit to doing that. But I've talked to people like Reggie Flimlin, shout out, Juice Basin, what up? People ask her, why don't you? And she's like, well, I'm doing my own thing now. I don't have, the time.
Yeah.
And just to give a little context, oh boy, I moved back. I lived in the wonderful land of enchantment out in Albuquerque, New Mexico for like 10 years. And I moved back around, I want to say 2008. And it was probably the lowest point in my life. I was living with my mom. No shame in the game. If you got to live with your mom for a while, there's nothing wrong with that. But, there's a time limit on that. There's a clock on that, unless you're helping them out. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. But I was living with my mom. I was between jobs. I was out of shape, like the most out of shape I've ever been. When you are not feeling good, like mentally, and you just don't want to do anything, and you're living with your mom, and you're chilling in Seabright. There's more things going on in Seabright now than there was back in the day. But anyway, I was really out of shape, and through a couple different series of events, I ended up at your yoga class. You were my first yoga teacher, and that was that was 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. Yeah. And actually, shout out to my mom who was going to the class. I was like, I don't want to do yoga. What's yoga? And she convinced me because I was just a out of shape slob and I needed to get out of the house. And it is such. I don't know what it is, but what do you think that stigma is between like the exercise part of it and people not wanting to venture into it because they think it's some kind of they think yoga is something besides, and I guess it is, but people think it's something besides the exercise. They don't see past that. Why do you think some people are so resistant to it?
I think there's a lot of things. We've made yoga very different here in the West, and I think just the word yoga, people automatically think I have to be able to bend myself into a pretzel. I can't do that. I can't stand on my head, whatever it may be. And then also, I'm not into all of that spirituality, maybe. So I think there's a lot of misconception around yoga, which is a shame, because it's really, there is an exercise and an asana part to it, but that's one tiny little part to a much bigger piece. And I'll never forget when you and I had been practicing together at Brahma for years, and a couple years into it, at least 2 or 3 years into it, I'll never forget, you came up to me and you said, not only has this changed my body, but I'm starting to sleep better. I'm starting to feel better. I'm starting to notice a difference in my personality. And I just, oh my God, it warmed my heart so much, because that's the yoga working. And that's what happens. Yes, it is a physical practice on your mat, but what happens over time is it starts to translate into your daily life. And that's really the practice of yoga.
Yeah, and I mean, that's when you're practicing yoga, you're exercising. So there's a lot of different things you could get from it, but I mean, it's low impact. I sometimes say no impact, but it's I don't know if that's true. Is it low impact or no impact as far as exercise goes?
I would say it's low impact. And the connection between the mat and life is, when we're in a posture and we're trying to, I don't know, find balance or something. So you're working on your physical being, and you're thinking about your toes and your stance, everything, and you want to bring that same concept to life as well. So, bringing that mindfulness into every point of your body. And then the same thing in life, like when you're off of the mat and day-to-day things, how can you bring that mindfulness into every moment?
Yeah.
And it's a practice. That's why it's called a yoga practice.
Yeah, and that's that's the thing too, is I with my wife, who teaches yoga as well. Her name's Lauren as well, and she's very spiritual. She's definitely gotten to me to think about things differently, because I'm always looking at the hard facts and the science of it, which I think is to me it's a good foundation where to start from, and it's basically that. It's not necessarily how other people perceive you. It's more how you perceive yourself and how you feel about yourself. And exercise is going to help regulate your body. It's going to help, no matter what you're doing, yoga, walking. That's how I started exercising. When I was like that disgusting loser living in that house, I was out of shape. And the first thing I did was I was just like, I'm just going to walk. Like every day, I don't know how to exercise. I don't know how to do anything. I'm just going to walk. And I go on the beach and I just walk. And that's how it kind of got my mind going, because I was in really a few years into working, doing, yoga with you, going to the gym, doing all these things. I got obsessed with the idea of the outside perception in, and I wasn't really realizing how great I felt, and I burnt myself out. Because I think, and this kind of, I want to go into more of the, the whole food and everything else that so well, because it's how you feel, and you have to really, like I was telling my friend the other day, don't look at the scale. This is all. I'm glad we're talking about this, because I'm not the worst shape I've ever been. I'm not in the best shape I've ever been, but I definitely need to, you're reminding me of wow, yoga. I felt good. I was doing it. That was great. But there's so many great things towards just being healthy in general. Why do you think it's so difficult? Like us as humans, you wake up in the morning and it's like, I can do this, which is going to be, it's going to make me feel good. I'm going to live a better life. I'm going to live longer. Or I could do this, which is going to make me feel like crap. And I'm going to be, tired, yet I'm not going to be able to go to sleep. What is it about humans where it's like you could do something that'll help, or you're like, no, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to drink a soda. What do you think it is about us as a species that makes us not want to do what we should be doing?
I think it's really, most of us have issues with change. Change is hard.
Yeah.
And it's intense, and it takes work and effort, and and it's just easier to just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's very true.
You know, it's a shame, but I think that's the reality of it.
And as far as what got part of the podcast is this area, the Jersey Shore area. You moved here. How old were you when you moved here?
I moved to the Jersey Shore, my goodness, maybe when I was like 24.
What brought you down here?
Oh, I always knew I would live here.
Oh, really?
I always knew I would live here. Always.
What was it? Just just the summers, or did you vacate? Like, did your family come here, or what?
We would always vacation on the Jersey Shore, and I just knew I knew that I needed to live by the beach, and I knew that it would be here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that's what brought you down here. What brought you into wanting to help people become more healthy? Like, what's your passion there?
Well, it started when I was a teenager, very young. I was very fortunate. At 13 years old, my one of my uncles went through the Transcendental Meditation course and put our whole family through the course as well.
Wow.
And at 13 years old, I could meditate with the adults, whereas the younger cousins and everything, they were doing the walking meditation, which is fine, but I was able to really do the intense stuff with the adults.
You were meditating at 13?
13.
Wow.
When I tell you, at 13 years old, you don't have any problems, you don't have any responsibilities. The places that I was getting in my meditations, I mean, literally, it's a high that I'm still trying to get back to. Like, they were so intense and unbelievable. And my two teachers were in Asbury Park, so we would go and have these very intense meditation sessions, and it was over months and months that we all learned it as a family. And ever since then, not only was I like the weirdo, after school I'd go to like my friend's house and we'd all be hanging out, and I'd be like, can I go to like another room? I need to meditate for 20 minutes. Like, just this huge nerd. But it just felt so good. And I kind of, I was a kid, so I was in and out of it. College, certainly out of it, but still always very drawn to yoga and that that world. And I always knew I would come back to it. And after college, I was very unhealthy after years of binge drinking and partying and terrible food and everything. And I just didn't feel good in my body. I had anxiety. I had chronic IBS, all these health issues. And I came back to yoga, and nothing fancy. I was taking a regular class at LA Fitness. I was living at my parents' at the time.
Shout out. Shout out to everyone's parents out there taking care of you.
Right? on a consistent basis, and it started to really transform me. And once it did, it literally cured my anxiety. It helped so much relieve my IBS. And I remember waking up and being like, I have to share this with other people because it healed me. So now how can I go and help people?
I can't imagine, like, Lauren, anxiety ridden. I can't. You're just like, you're like walking chill. Like, every time I see you, like, hey, I'm like, oh, it's great. Give me a hug. You're in such a good mood. I can't imagine that.
No, very much so.
Wow.
And it is something that I still, every once in a while, my anxiety will get the best of me, and I have to be very mindful that it'll never get to that point where I have panic attacks again or anything like that, because my practice is too deep. But the mind is it's incredible, and it'll take you in places that sometimes you don't want to go.
Yeah. And I think that's first of all, I think it's really a brave thing, and it's great to break the stigma down about talking about IBS and letting people know that this happens to people, this happens to everybody, and it's not just, oh, I ate a bad taco. It's like your mind, what you did that day. Like, it's a lot of different things.
Totally.
And, when you were going through that, like, it was just a conscious effort to be like, this is a problem and I can fix it? Or how were you going about was it a diet thing? Like, how did you attack it first?
Well, this was during college when it was at its worst. It was, IBS is completely a stress-related illness. And this was, I always kind of was drawn to the holistic realm of things, but I didn't understand it. I certainly I wasn't seeing the right healers or anything. So I was in and out of doctors that were not helping. But a consistent thing was they just kept saying, are you stressed out? Are you stressed out? And in the moment, I'm like, well, no, I'm not stressed out. But on a daily basis, I really was stressed, whether it be my life, whether it was the food that I was eating that was stressing my body, going to bed late, all of the above that was just doing my body wrong. And I just, it was an interesting time, and eventually I was realizing that I wasn't getting help through conventional medicine, and that's when I'm like, I really think diet has something to play with it. I really do think I should be working more on yoga and stress management, and I didn't know at that time, what that was, but I was trying. And at that time, I did go strict vegetarian, which worked then. And unfortunately, I stayed vegetarian for very long, and it did much damage to my health. So during that period, it certainly helped, but that was just one tiny little piece of a much bigger puzzle.
When you say, and before anyone, my personal belief is that when it comes to health, what you eat, how you exercise, what you do, there's no necessarily, if you're doing something, as long as you're treating yourself with respect, there's nothing, there's no right or wrong way in that sense of like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You're running, you're walking. As long as you're not punishing your body while you're doing it, you're doing something, and that's great. And no matter what diet you have, if it works for you, that's great. It might not work for everybody. And that's, that book that you gave me a while ago that kind of set me on my path, the integrative nutrition book. Everyone's different. So when you say that like the vegetarian diet wasn't working for you, what do you mean exactly?
Well, that's the tricky part, is that no diet works for everybody, and you have to remember that the body is constantly changing. So sometimes, like at that point in my life, a vegetarian diet, it really helped me, and it really relieved my symptoms. But then, a couple years later, I needed to go back to meat, and I didn't realize that, but I just kept eating that way, and my health kept declining. So I should have reevaluated my dietary choices and said, you know what, I need to kind of shift things around. But I didn't, because that diet, I mean, my God, it was so beautiful being vegetarian, and the concept is so beautiful, and it's so kind. But it's, for many people, including myself, it's just not realistic. It's not practical, because my body needs animal protein, unfortunately.
What do you, as far as what you eat, what in regards to meat, is it more fish based, or is it just everything? Or you're not rocking hamburgers or anything, are you? Like you're doing.
It's funny. After being vegetarian for so long, I knew I had to go back to meat, because I had tried everything to help my health, and nothing was working. And I added a little bit of fish in, and I was really doing well. And then I said, let me add a little bone broth, and it was really helping. So I'm like, that's it. I really got to add some meat in.
For it.
Yeah. And of course, I went back with bacon. Most
tough. Bacon is a tough. It's a problem. It's a solution. But you look at it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'll never forget my I think he was my fiance at the time. He made me a plate of bacon, and I must have sat there for about 30 minutes just looking at it, being like, I can't do this. It's going to make me so sick. Meanwhile, I had the whole plate. I did not get sick. I felt fantastic.
You ate like a whole pound of bacon right in front of you.
Right.
Yeah.
But I have to say, after that, I added chicken back in, turkey, all that stuff. Organ meats. I do raw liver smoothies like on the regular. Oh, yeah.
Raw liver smoothies. You heard it here first, folks.
Oh, yeah.
What? Why? What does it do?
Oh, yeah.
Where do I get one?
You can come over and I'll make you one.
All right. Raw liver.
Yeah, there's a recipe on my website. If you just type in raw liver smoothie, it's just a nice little quick shot. Very simple, easy. You wouldn't even know that it's there, believe it or not.
Okay.
And liver, any organ meat from an animal is just so nutrient dense. And liver is wonderful for energy, for B vitamins. It's great for hormone health. So it's just a wonderful superfood, and it's easy to get down. Like believe it or not, I've never actually cooked liver.
Wow.
But I do raw liver smoothies on the regular, and they're great.
Is that like when you're eating this meat and stuff? I'm assuming like free range, no. Like what do you not that anyone, everyone's doing their own thing, but like what would you recommend as far as if you're gonna eat meat, like what are we doing? We're doing like free range chicken, no, like what kind of chemical, like what are they putting in that stuff that you're not like?
It's a disaster. It's not even just about what they're pumping these poor animals with. It's how they're treating them, and really that's that's the issue is. We want to make sure that the meat and any animal products, when I say meat, also dairy products, we want to always make sure that they are happy and healthy animals. Because when we are consuming sick, tortured animals, we ourselves will eventually become sick.
Yeah. So
it's very important that, we get organic raised meats, grass-fed whenever possible. It's just it's a very important thing that we want to make sure that we are aware of. It's
funny too because that's another thing, kind of similar to yoga. When you bring up these things, there's a certain with certain people, mixed company. If I'm hanging out with, if I'm at a family party, I kind of keep, I don't talk about certain things. I don't talk about religion, politics, what I'm eating, yoga. Cryptocurrency, like I don't talk about certain things because people like just bug out. They like don't get it, and it's not like I'm trying to tell anyone what they're doing wrong. I'm just talking about what I'm doing, and when you could back it up, and I think that's what's cool is you back this stuff up with science, and obviously you're doing it, so it's not like you're telling other people. You're like, I'm doing this. This is what I recommend. You were talking about meditation before, and it's something that I've gotten into. It's interesting along those lines too, where people think, I can't sit down and concentrate. And I'm like, dude, meditation is better than television because when you're sitting down watching TV, you're doing nothing. But when you're meditating, you're really like doing nothing. You're thinking. But when and this is my like ignorant spin on meditation is like when you sit down, you're not doing it wrong. And if you're thinking about stuff, you're still not doing it wrong. You described it in a class where if thoughts come into your mind, it's just like a cloud, and then they float away. And that's kind of how you have to use it. It's not like you're going to sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to meditate right now, and you're going to go into like Zen Buddha mode. Yeah. It takes some time. But even in that time, it's still helping your brain. Like it's helping your brain so much. This is science, people. I'm not making it up. Yep. What are some tips to kind of like as far as meditation, like what are the benefits and what are some tips to kind of help people do it? Because it's something that literally anyone can do.
Yeah. I love talking about meditation. I love teaching meditation because it is such an important practice that we all need to do. We all have monkey minds. Yeah. All of us have a hard time with sitting down and quieting our mind, and that's not what it's about. It's impossible. I've had so many students say, I cannot quiet my mind, and it's like no one can.
Yeah, it's always something. If it's that quiet, you might be dead. So right. You don't want it to be that quiet.
That's what happens is that you sit down and stuff comes up, and it's really just about observing. Mm-hmm. So the most important thing that you can do with meditation, first and foremost, is just drop into your breath and become so familiar with it. And just work on the inhales and the exhales and how does it feel? What's the temperature? And, is it smooth? Is it choppy? Like just if you can master the breath alone and just learning how to take some deep, slow breaths, you've already mastered a huge part of meditation. And then, the next part is, okay, so all of these thoughts in my head, there's so much going on. And that's okay. Just observe.
Yeah.
Just try not to be so judgmental of what comes up.
Yeah.
And just allow it all to flow. Because in all of that, believe it or not, that's where stress relief is.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really fascinating.
And it's not even like we're not talking to Lauren from like 6 years ago where she's dipping into class, teaching class. There's all these people working, dealing with their lives, coming in here, and you're like, hey, chill out, what's the problem? Like, you're a mom now. You're about to be like mom times 2. Like, you're gonna have another kid. Like, so the benefits of all this from a whole nother perspective.
You have no idea.
I don't.
It is so cool to me because all these years, you have to remember it. So I was trained in transcendental meditation that you have to meditate 2 times a day for at least 20 minutes, and those 2 times a day. I'm sorry. I don't know about you guys, but I don't have that time.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way. So it was such a struggle for me all these years. And I finally got to the point about when I started teaching you where I was like, you know what? Any minutes, moments, whatever it is that I can get into meditation, I'm going to do it. So now being a mother, I wake up and usually my son wakes up a couple minutes right after. So I just grab my phone, shout out to the Insight Timer meditation app. Oh my God, it's fantastic. It's so fantastic. And you can program how many minutes you can meditate for.
I love that app.
I do about 3 minutes, literally 3 minutes. That's it. I sit there and all I do is breathe. On the days when I do that, I'm very mindful. I'm much more calm. I have much more patience with my son. I'm just a little softer with everything. On the days when I don't, oh man.
It's perception too. I think it gives you like a when you give yourself that time to look at your thoughts or think about your thoughts and kind of relax your brain just for that minute. I think that in and of itself, that perception that changes inside of you changes how you see everyone around you. Like people, you're like, oh, everything's great. People are being nicer. And it's like, well, maybe I'm just seeing things differently,
Yeah.
So how do you, I mean, if your son is up, are you just like, look, mommy's meditating, so back up? Or are you like, Hanley, sit down, like we're like how do you handle that?
No. I literally make my sadhana practice, my yoga practice, my life. So if I'm meditating and he's saying, mommy, I have to, I want to wake up, I will go wake him up and we'll start playing. And while I am with him, I will continue to just focus on my breath. Or, I'll do a couple stretches, or I'll just think about how grateful I am for him or for my health, whatever it is. And I will do whatever I can to just weave that same concept but into my daily activities, whether it could be chopping vegetables, it could be at a red light. Simple things like that where I'm just injecting the yoga into different areas.
And that's great when it permeates everything. I mean, on a flip side example of that is I was really stressed out last week and trying to rush around, and you're just setting yourself up for something bad. So I'm rushing around. I bust a right on a stop sign. I get pulled over right there. I had to go to court today to deal with the ticket.
Oh, God.
I got the points waived, so holla.
Good.
But it's in those moments where I got pulled over. I'm like, you were rushing, you weren't being mindful, and I could be really mad, or I could take that as an opportunity to be like, look, you're just checking yourself, and it sucks, but you have to deal with it. So just breathe through it and deal with it.
Yep.
Do you find that is Hanley like busting any like downward dog, or like is he into it? Like you can't be pushy with really anything with kids. You kind of have to like suggest things to them unless they're getting rowdy. But do you see an influence, a super chill influence on him as you're doing this stuff?
I do. I certainly feel, not only does every once in a while, if he sees me roll my mat out, he'll go grab his mat.
Cool.
He goes right into a down dog and says, "Mommy, I'm doing yoga." It's adorable. But he will also, when I take my harmonium out,
nice.
he'll say, "Play that," and he goes to his piano, and
How's the harmonium going?
Good. It's fun.
How long have you been playing? Or
my goodness, I don't know how long I've been playing the harmonium. Maybe it's been about a year or two, maybe 2 years now.
Did you take lessons, YouTube? What did you do? You just started jamming out, or what?
I did. I just got over the fear of it. I was so intimidated by it, and I just started playing with it. And I was very fortunate. Someone passed one along to me.
Oh, cool.
And I was able to really just play with it and dropping that fear and just kind of, that's the whole thing with Bhakti Yoga is it doesn't have to sound a certain way. It doesn't have to be anything. Just allow it to flow. And once I really embraced that, it's been fantastic.
I think that's kind of a good metaphor, too, for kind of everything as far as health, exercise, all this stuff is like you're not going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
There's no yoga tournament. You're not going to get a black belt in it. You're battling within as far as like, there's no way of looking at it. I think that's what people get intimidated by with meditation too and yoga is that they think they're doing it wrong, and it's like you're not doing anything wrong. Like you're doing it, so go for it.
No, and I feel like we're so hard on ourselves, and I guess it's just the culture that we live in. Like everything's on social media, so everybody is seen by everybody else. So there's this pressure to do it right and to be so perfect, and it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's really not.
And speaking of that, like that idea of people seeing or seeing you on social media or our daily lives, you were doing corporate wellness for a while.
Yeah.
Are you still doing corporate wellness?
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Are you going there? Like, so talk a little bit about that. You show up to a place and they're like, they ring a bell, Lauren's here, and they all get around and go, meditate. Like, how does that work?
Oh no. I did corporate wellness for years at a company that I was working at in upstate New York, and then I resigned from that position, but I jumped right back into corporate wellness after having Hanley, and I've been working at a business right near Wall Street, and I'm there once a week, and I pop in. I teach a yoga class or two. I also, but I manage the wellness program. So I hire other practitioners to come in to teach other classes. I'm always doing themed months, and we'll pick. Like for February, we're doing self-care month, so everything will be revolved around self-care. Other months I'll do something on brain health, and I'll promote different articles and recipes, and I'll do a nutrition seminar, whatever it may be.
What's been the response? Has it been like people trickle in, or it's like Gary in accounting, he's like, I'm not trying that stuff, it's great, and then eventually you wear him down like Dangerous Mind style, or like how do you like, is it I'm sure it's not like everyone's immediately receptive. So how do you break down those walls to get Gary from accounting to, put down his briefcase and like do a little exercise?
That's a good question. Because it comes back to, number one, what we were talking about before. People are very reluctant to change.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are like, oh my God, I love that there's this wellness program. I can't wait for the yoga class, for this, for that. And then they're never showing up.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the people who really do make the effort and want to make that change do make it to class and do take that time out from their day. Whereas a lot of the other people, it's, I'm too busy. And it's like, well, let's step back for a second, because there is nothing more important than your health.
Yeah, definitely.
Nothing.
Yeah.
If you don't have your health, then what do you have?
Yeah.
So the people who recognize that, they really benefit. And I must say, with being in corporate wellness for as long as I've been, it's interesting how once you start a program, it doesn't boom right away.
Yeah.
It takes people sometimes a couple years to be like, maybe I should try a nutrition seminar or something and see how this makes me feel. So they need the consistency to be there a lot of the times, and then all of a sudden they're like, maybe it is time for me to do this.
Yeah, I find that too. Like, I'll find myself, I don't meditate every day, and I look forward to meditating, and it's always, I'll catch myself being like, well, I don't have time to do that. And it's like, what do you mean you don't have? You have all the time. Like, you have to do it. If you do it, you're going to actually have more time afterwards, because you're not going to be thinking or stressing, as much as you might still be a little bit, but I guarantee it's going to help, I definitely think it's going to help. But like going even before somebody's in corporate wellness, that's great. They're Gary from accounting still trying to get his act together. But like, if we could have reached Gary when he was like a toddler, a little baby, and I'm just trying to swing it back around to your hashtag, what Hanley's eating. Is it what Hanley? Yeah, it's what Hanley's eating. Right? Yeah, good. You put a book together. That you've shown me. We worked together on getting it out there, and it's just a matter of like, I for one, I don't know what to feed a baby. I'll give him like a carrot or something. Be like, good luck, kid. But like, there's a lot of people out there that just have no idea.
No.
And if you could kind of start them off early, like I did not eat well as a child. I'm like an 80s baby, and it was all like, Count Chocula and just cans of soda after cans of soda. Yeah. So if you get them started at that young age, that's great. You just have to have the parents there to be like, okay, this is what you eat, but you need somebody else like yourself there to be like, all right, parents, like, do you find that like people are coming up to you or asking you on Instagram or like, what do I feed this kid of mine,
Yeah, I feel like even just myself being a new mother and being a holistic health coach, food is all I do. I remember being so confused, so scared, and having no idea what to do. And that's when I said to myself, if I don't know what to do, I can't imagine what these other parents are doing right now. So I have to put out this book, and it's a quick, short ebook, but it just gets to the point of how important it is that we need to feed our children nutrient dense food. First and foremost, we need to wait until they're ready to eat, which is so important, and it's not talked about with pediatricians. Try to have us feed them much earlier than they should.
Like in the morning, or what do you mean? Much like we feed them?
Age-wise.
Oh, okay.
So I think on the first page of my ebook, I mentioned how my pediatrician said, at 4 months, are you starting to think about foods? And I said, no, 4 months, absolutely not. It's too early. Their digestive system, it's still forming. It needs to mature to be able to take in any foods. So, I mean, Hanley, and every child is different, but Hanley was showing signs that he was ready for food around 6.5, 7 months. So that's when I slowly started to add in some foods, and for him that really worked. And it goes back to those first foods that we're told that they should have. Rice cereals, those are things that are really disruptive to their system.
Like complex, processed, or
right,
as opposed to just fruit or like vegetable, like
and more importantly, meat.
Oh, really?
Oh, God, yeah. I know you would think that it would be harder on the belly, but actually those starches are harder on the belly because the digestive enzyme that we need to break down those starches, they're not there yet because the digestive system is still not mature enough. So the nutrient-dense foods, those, meat, organ meats, even like an egg yolk, and of course, vegetables, some fruits or whatever, that's really where we want to start. I actually didn't feed Hanley grains until he was about a year old, and then beans and legumes until about 18 months.
And when you introduce this stuff, first of all, obviously everyone go talk to your pediatrician.
Of course, yes.
Make sure everything's right, allergies, whatever else, picky eaters, you got to figure out what to feed, the kids. But Yeah, and I can attest too. Like I saw Hanley over the, I think it was in the summer, the fall, on the boardwalk, and he was like lifting up a bench. He's a strong, mighty kid. So this diet is definitely working for him. But in relation to that, like when you put food in front of your child, like what if he's like, I don't want this? Does he bug sometimes, flip a table and be like, I don't want this, I'm out. The service here is horrible.
All the time. All the time.
So what do you do? What do you do if the kid won't eat? How do you you just wait for him to be hungry?
You know what I do? Because there's so many days where I'm like, oh my God, I cannot stand this. Like, he's not getting his protein, he's not doing this. And then I say, you know what? All I can do is just offer him these foods. If he doesn't take it, he's not going to starve. He'll eat something. It may not be what I want him to eat, but he'll eat something. But he is going to see me preparing foods for him until he walks out and leaves our home. And those foods are going to be so nutritious and so healthy. And okay, so he's going to go to college, he's going to party, he's going to eat a bunch of crap, all that stuff.
Keg stands, everything.
Unfortunately. But you know what? When he gets a place of his own, the only thing he's going to know is, well, I've got to keep these foods in the house, and I know I should always have a fermented food because this is what I grew. It's all he knows.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's what I just keep reminding myself, that just stick with it, just keep offering what I can. And obviously I'm not perfect. Like, I do snack foods for him, and there's some nights where, he just has cheese or fruit, whatever
Cheese
it
night.
is.
Everyone loves cheese night.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was a pain. I can't say, the swear jar is right in front of you. I didn't notice. I know you like to curse like a sailor, but,
Oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah. So, I wouldn't eat. Like, when I was a kid, I was just like, no, I'm not eating. They'd be like, why aren't you eating? Yelling at me to eat, trying to make me to eat, sit down and eat a sandwich. I wouldn't want to eat it. I don't know why, necessarily. But, I mean, it's definitely something that you got to handle. Not like my parents. You can't just, I was yelled at for 18 years. So you can't do that. You got to be a little more calm. I'm sure you got that down pat though. So it's just a matter about just being there and being here it is.
Yeah.
You got to eat sometime. You can't, and not. It's got to be hard because it's like a hostage negotiator situation where they will wait you out. They will wait you out, and it's like here's the food. You can't give in to just placating whatever they want. You got to be like here it is. And I'm sure it's got to break your heart at times when
You have no idea. It's so frustrating. But I do have to remember, I don't want to be on top of him and be like, one more bite. Because we all have such issues around food.
Yeah, totally.
Right? We obsess over it, and, eating disorders. Those are real issues.
Seriously.
And they relate back to things like this. Finish your plate, you know, eat it all, and, you got to do this and that. And it's like, there shouldn't be really rules around food.
Yeah.
It's just we just need to nourish our bodies as best as we can, and that may not be so perfect every day, but that's okay. It's always about finding that balance.
Yeah, I just had a flashback to when I was a kid. My dad's favorite line when we were eating, we go to my aunt's house, whatever, was shut up and eat. And it's funny because I'm sitting here, I like to talk. I would just sit there and I would just be entertaining the guests, talking, and it'd be like, shut up and eat. And that's just constantly was in my head of I made it. I'm relatively okay. So one thing that I want people to understand something that I have no idea what the hell's going on most of the time, and I don't know what I'm talking about as far as health, whatever. I just do what works for me, and then I contact people like Lauren to be like, I'm doing something messed up, I need help. So one thing that I don't understand, and the more I hear about it, the more I don't think it means what I think it means is inflammation. Because when I think of inflammation, I think of being swollen, but it being inflamed. It means more than that. You could have inflammation, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in your brain, in different parts of your body. So what is inflammation, and how do we destroy inflammation?
This is a topic in and of itself. Inflammation is the root of most if not all, diseases. And I think a big buzzword these days is an anti-inflammatory diet, which it should be, because many of us are walking around inflamed. And, when you hear that word, it literally means, there's a part or parts of our body that are just red hot and inflamed.
Yeah, and that's not good.
It's not good. It is not good. And an anti-inflammatory diet will really help. But the question is, okay, so what is an anti-inflammatory diet? And we have to think of those foods that are culprits, that are really creating that inflammation, which is first and foremost, before anything else, sugar, gluten, dairy.
Gluten.
Oh, I know.
Oh man, it's
Such
everywhere.
A bastard.
I don't know how it got into the country. I don't know what it's doing, but we got to get gluten, and we got to destroy this menace. What? It's not necessarily it's gluten, but it's like when we talk about inflammation, all this stuff. Does a lot of it processed foods? Is that a culprit as far as inflammation?
Oh, 100%.
And when we say processed foods, we mean like stuff that you're not kind of cooking yourself, basically. You're pulling it out of a box, basically.
A box or a bag with an ingredient list really long.
And gluten it's in wheat?
Right. It's the protein that binds wheat together. And gluten is really, it's not the enemy, but...
It's not the enemy. Okay, good.
But here in the States, unfortunately, it is modified. And because of that, it's no longer an ancient grain.
Yeah.
So, I studied in Italy during college, and I had no issues with pasta, with bread there, because they're still using an ancient grain.
Yeah.
Whereas here, our wheat is much more modified, so it's much more inflammatory. And that's what's so upsetting, is that it's an inflammatory food. That's and whether some people feel that in their body and some people don't.
Yeah.
So a lot of people say, "Oh, well, I'm not intolerant to gluten," and it's like, oh, well, what's going on inside?
Yeah, you don't really, if you don't observe and at least try to look at it, you don't really know. And I've been trying to do that more lately, because I really have trouble eating breakfast in the morning. Like, I don't want to eat. I'm not hungry. So and then I try to have a glass of water before I drink coffee. But sometimes I'm just like rocking the coffee, and I'm like, yeah, I know, it's bad. And then by the time I get to lunch, I've noticed that, depending on what I eat, and I think it's around more sugar than it is around bread, but I get really like tired and foggy.
Yeah.
And is that part of inflammation, or what is that? What's going on? What's the sciencey stuff going on in my body, where I'm just like, I want to take a nap after I eat like, a burger, or I drink a soda or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, what is that inflammation?
I don't know if that would technically be inflammation. It's certainly your body reacting to food, which is a wonderful observation, because when you can actually step back and be like, I just had X, Y, and Z, and I feel like this right now because of eating like that. It's a really good way to notice what foods are working for you and what foods are not.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times gluten, or even, too much meat or something, it depends. Everybody's different.
Yeah, and that's something you really got to observe. And if anyone obviously is interested in learning more about it, go to laurengrogan.yoga.com. laurengrogan.yoga. It's the future. And you could find, if you're interested in doing it, there's an intake form on the site to get in touch with Lauren to see if she can work with you and help you in any way. Yeah. Because it's not just about every day what you're eating. It's like, when are you waking up? It's a lot of different factors that are kind of coming into play. Oh, yeah. And going back to that whole thing of inflammation, like, what are the different symptoms, or like, if what's going to happen to your body if you are being affected by that? Like, what are some of the things that people would notice?
Well, first of all, before I even answer that, I said sugar, gluten, some dairy, soy products.
Really?
Oh God, yeah. Processed food, poor quality oils.
What's a poor quality oil? Like an olive oil?
No,
Or like a fish oil?
No. I would
Man,
say
I'm getting it all wrong.
like when you do pick up a processed food, anything that you see that has soybean oil, oh my God, put it down.
Okay.
Cottonseed oil, anything that is a seed oil is usually not very good. Any kind of trans fats, obviously, we all know how damaging they are. Canola oil. I always love to say, really emphasize the NO in canola oil, just to remember that it is not an oil that we want to be consuming. We really don't. And that is a poor quality oil. Eventually, it will create inflammation in the body. And unfortunately, coffee is an inflammatory.
Oh, really?
I know.
I'm messing up?
I
Because I'm doubling down. I'm putting dairy in it. I don't care. I'm not putting sugar in it, but
That's
I'm putting.
good.
I mean, 2 strikes. I guess it's not that bad, but it's. I think it goes back to the idea of like not being hard on yourself, and doing it when you can, fixing things when you can or how you can. And not beating yourself up over it. So I've gone through those peaks and valleys where like I'm doing everything right physically, I'm exercising, I'm eating well, but I'm like stressing out my brain.
Yeah.
Where I'm like being hard on myself to where I'm thinking I'm not doing it well enough. I'm weighing myself, and every day you're gonna fluctuate. When I'm exercising regularly, I'll lose the weight, but then I'll gain it back because I'm gaining muscle.
Yeah.
At least that's what I think is happening. So I mean, as far as what are some of the things if you're gonna sit down with somebody and they've at least made that effort to be like, all right, I'm messing up and I need help. What are some of the things that you first go over with somebody that you're working with?
I love during the intake, people are just so quick to get right into their diet and everything, and the questions that I always make sure that I ask are, how much water are you drinking every day? Do you drink coffee?
Yeah.
What is your sleep? What is the quality of your sleep? Are you getting enough? What does it look like? When do you go to bed? All of that, because that is huge.
Yeah.
What vitamins and supplements are you taking or not taking? And how do you feel on a daily basis? Because that's a huge, how you're feeling every single day. It's a huge barometer as to where your health is at. The way that you look, the way that you feel is huge. It's more important than anything else.
And that's something too with corporate wellness. I mean, I've read about it, heard about it, whatever, where, I think corporations or companies are looking at the idea of, if we make sure, it's not reactive health concerns where people are, okay, now I'm sick and I got to do something about it. It's more of preventative health, where if your company is running well, if the people in there are happy, then they're going to be doing a better job. And it's great that companies are kind of realizing to bring somebody like you in it's beneficial. You're not dealing with like Deborah fell down and she hurt herself and now she can't get back to work, XYZ. And it's not that she just physically hurt herself. It's all these other things that are not allowing her to get better faster or to recover in the right way. Having somebody like you come in and just be that kind of voice, I mean, basically the voice of reason of being like, look, you're not doing these things and you should be doing these things. Yeah. I mean, that's great to have somebody like you come in. And when you got into that, were you in another role when you first did at the first job? You were in another role, and were you just like, hey boss, can we do a little yoga? Like, how did you break that barrier?
I was a product designer at the time at the company I was working for, and I was getting my yoga certification, and one of the higher ups heard that and said, can you start teaching yoga here? And I was like, yeah. So
I thought you never asked.
I know. And I had always had such an interest in corporate wellness because I had seen what it was doing to the people around me.
You're sitting in a desk.
With the fluorescent lights and the hunched over. Oh my God. So I couldn't wait to get into it. But then after I got my yoga certification, I was like, oh my God. So I'm teaching these people, and then they're floating out of my class and they're going home and they're having a crappy dinner or crappy lunch, whatever it is. So I got to go back to school for nutrition. So I needed to kind of get the full package. That's really, I just love corporate wellness because you are at your job for so many hours of the day, and it's so important to incorporate health into your day, and then when you go home as well. And the cool part about corporate wellness that I just love so much is how when I teach the people who at least come to my classes, they'll take what they learn home.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had people come to me over the years, and they're like, my husband, because of what you said about, I don't know, he stopped drinking coffee or whatever, his cholesterol went down or something. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, so there's this really cool ripple effect that happens when the people who come and take advantage of it, they take it in, and then they take it home to their families, and it's great. And it really is just sometimes one or two very minor changes that, somebody starts to have a green smoothie every morning, and it just starts to rock their world.
Yeah. Shout out again to Juice Basin, because I'll go there and pick up like an Asbury Slammer, and I'll drink it. I've sat there with Reggie before, and I'm drinking it, and I'm like, Reggie, I got to tell you, I feel kind of high right now.
Right?
And she's like high-fiving me, because she's like, yeah, that's the nutrition in it. You're not waking up and slamming a coffee. You're drinking this drink, and it has all these nutrients in it that are going to naturally wake you up,
Exactly.
So it's important for people. I mean, I think it's important for people to kind of realize that and not get caught up on what people are going to like. People get caught up in these buzzwords of like fat, cholesterol, gluten, what don't do this, don't do that. And from the book and talking to you, that integrative nutrition book, it's really just about kind of balance. And going back to the idea of like, and I'm saying this to the people that are listening, but I'm kind of saying it to myself, is just don't be hard on yourself. And it's don't get caught up in these like rigid ideas. It's just like, drink water. That's good for you. If you drink water instead of drinking pretty much anything else, that's going to be better for you. It's not easy. There's a lot of people dealing with this stuff. So, I mean, and it goes, if you really want to get granular with it, you could look at like blood type. You could look at different things, as far as doing all of that, like looking at your blood type, there's a few different ways of eating based on that, which really kind of blows my mind. It's like, how could, we're all human, we're all here, but I guess we should be eating different things. And is that the point where if people are getting their, how would that process go? Like, I want to see what my blood type is. You should go to your physician, get that all figured out. And then what do you do with all that information? Do you go to somebody like you to discuss it, or?
It's something I always keep in the back of my mind during an intake, depending on the foods that they're craving or that they tend to eat. I always love to say, like, do you know your blood type? And sometimes it is reflective of, like, okay, so they would be more of a meat eater, or they should be eating more meat and they're not, or yes, that's why she's doing so well as a vegetarian. Like, it's a fun little way to see how foods may react to some people, but again, it's a diet. It's not the end all be all. So it's something to keep in the back of your mind, but it's more something to just have fun with. It really always comes down to what is working for your body, and how can you make that work as your body consistently changes, and drop the labels, because I struggled with that as well, like being a vegetarian, and then I'm like, all right, well, I'm starting to add in fish, and I'm starting to add in bone broth, and now I'm really eating more meat, and what do I do here? Like, who am I? And it's like, who cares? Like, really?
How
who
do you
cares?
feel?
Exactly. And that works for me. Like, I don't eat beef, but there is no name for it, and who the heck cares? It's just, I eat what makes me feel good, and that's how everybody else should be really living their life, and not trying to get the emotional and mind so wrapped into it, because our body is, it needs certain things, and sometimes it is an unfortunate thing when you are really into that mindset of living that vegetarian lifestyle. But again, come back to, okay, well then let me make sure that if I am going to consume animals, that they were treated properly and that they're happy and healthy.
And I think that that's you could I feel like I could taste the difference, when you're eating something that's grass fed versus something that's not.
Which is also an anti-inflammatory food.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. So you think of greens are an anti-inflammatory food.
Yeah.
So if they're grass-fed, they are grazing on grass all day long. So and fish, think about fish, the huge anti-inflammatory food. They eat seaweed all day. Seaweed is so nutrient dense. It's loaded with omega-3s, which is an anti-inflammatory food.
There you go, people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something else too. Like when I think about what stops me from, being healthy and just being a disgusting slob all the time is like I wake up in the morning and I don't have the right, if I didn't go food shopping or I didn't have it, I go so far out into like, oh my God, like I don't have anything prepared. Then a month goes by. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Like having a plan, like what do you do to make sure, every day that you and your family are eating? Like, do you prepare it on a Sunday? Do you prepare it every night? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to say that meal planning is easy in the least bit. It's not. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes thought, prep, all that. Money, everything.
Yeah.
But at least once a week, I make sure that I have the staples in my house, which is eggs, so that I can hard-boil them. I hard-boil a whole bunch at the beginning of the week so that I've got them all week long. It's the winter time now, so I'll roast tons of vegetables in the beginning of the week, and then you can throw them. You can make a side out of them. You can throw them into a salad, whatever it be. I always have greens in the house so that I can easily just throw together a salad or throw some into a smoothie. I mean, thank goodness for smoothies because, oh my goodness, it's so easy to get in what you need to quickly. And that's really it, just making sure that I have staples in my house. I keep a lot of frozen meat and stuff so that I can just pop something in the oven.
Is frozen meat, how long is that good for? Like, it can't be like forever, right?
No, it's certainly not forever. I think it depends.
I gotta clean out my freezer. I'm just reminding myself. So much stuff in there.
And with frozen stuff, that's why I'm such a lover of the Instant Pot. Oh my goodness.
What's the Instant Pot?
It's
shout outs.
Yes, it is. On my website, I keep the same blog post on my favorite Instant Pot recipes, and I just keep adding and adding to them because it's a pressure cooker. It's basically the pressure cooker of now, and it does everything.
Wow.
It's fantastic. It is a lifesaver in the kitchen. I use it at least every other day.
Really?
At least every other day.
I'm gonna have to look this up.
Oh my goodness, it's fantastic.
So I mean, that's the other thing. You have this book for how to feed a baby. What about a grown-up baby like me? Like, I need that book. I need you to put that book together. I know you have a lot of recipes on your site, but I literally need somebody to like spell it out. That's why me and Lauren will use Blue Apron, and it's just great because you get it, it's all there. Like, I don't know how to, maybe I'm probably just making up excuses, but like it just makes it so easy to do. And it gets me kind of on a way of thinking that's better. But I would love it. I would love it if, and I laurengrogan.yoga, you can go there and there's a ton of recipes.
Yeah.
But I literally need it written out, cross out the word babies and just put adults. And that's what I need. If you were, the other thing too is, people fill out this intake form and the part the biggest part that I had trouble with, because you're always there, you're always willing to help. I've reached out to you before, and it's so funny. The hardest part is just keeping track of, you want people to have a diary of what they're eating. And I don't know if it's just scary for me to be like, oh my God, I ate that today, but it's so hard to keep track of that. But that's a big part of it, kind of having people really look at what they're doing to themselves.
Because it's all about mindfulness. Yeah. We eat so mindlessly.
Oh, anything, if it's in front of me, I'll just eat it. I get so frustrated because I'm neurotic in a way that's like, I don't even want to have to think about. If there was like a gelatinous cube that I could just shove in my mouth and survive, that's what I would do, because I don't even want to have to think about it. You know what I mean? So definitely need an adult recipe book just laid out for me. If you were, when you're first sitting down with somebody, or if you could just let people know that are listening, well, what I'd like to let them know is if you're thinking about getting healthy and you don't know where to start, just go for a walk for like 30 minutes. It's literally will help you a lot. And just do it every day, and don't be hard on yourself if you miss it. But like, what would you say to people, like they want to get healthy, they've tried to get healthy, like what would you want to impart onto people to like get them on the right path?
Because people love to eat, I'm a holistic health coach, so I not only do nutrition, but I also look at how happy they are in their career, in their relationships, just how happy they are on a day-to-day basis. But people love the food part of it. So I always love to give a food tip because I think it's a little easier for everybody to just
digest.
Yes, exactly. So I always love to say, if you can just eat one dark green thing every day, just one time a day, that is a huge success.
What's dark and green? Like spinach?
There's spinach. There's an array of greens. There's some kale. There's
kale. Shout out to kale.
Yeah, right. There's bok choy. Oh my God, Ming makes the best bok choy ever.
Oh really?
I miss his bok choy so much. There's dandelion greens. There's arugula. There's broccoli. I would even give a free pass for like celery and zucchini.
Celery gets
things
a free
like
pass.
that.
I like
yeah,
that.
anything that's green, that a dark leafy green vegetable.
How much? We're talking a cup, 2 cups. How much? That's how I am. I'm a Virgo. I need to know, like, you know what I'm saying? So what are we talking here? 2 cups of.
And my thing is just get it in.
A handful?
Just get it in.
Just a handful.
Yeah,
just grab
totally.
it, grip it, and rip it.
And you know what? A really good thing, if I always keep spirulina, a nice jar of organic spirulina in my refrigerator, so that when there are days when I don't have greens in the house, which happens, my God, we don't have greens in the house all the time. If maybe I'll make a smoothie or something, I'll throw the spirulina in, and now I've got a green smoothie. What's
spirulina?
Spirulina is blue-green algae, so it's a seaweed. So again, that nutrient-dense seaweed that you want to get in, and now it's always in your fridge. Yeah. So even on the days where you're like, well, I don't have any greens in the house, it's like, well, maybe you can make a little smoothie and get in that spirulina.
Just to wrap things up here, we're talking with Lauren Grogan. laurengrogan.yoga is her website, and you can go on there and get a bunch of information, contact her, see what she's doing. What's your Instagram?
It's laurengrogan.yoga.
Oh, cool.
And I'm very active on my Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm always posting. I think I just posted yesterday or the day before a granola recipe. Like, I'm always trying to post some simple, easy, manageable recipes. I love using that hashtag for Hanley of what he's eating, what Hanley's eating, just to keep other parents in the loop of some other, toddler food ideas.
Yeah.
And
I feel like we just barely, we went over a lot, but I feel like we just barely scratched the surface. So, thanks a lot for coming in and talking. And, just to let people know that, just drink a glass of water right now if you can. Go for a walk for 15 minutes if you can. And especially, if you want to be healthy, just don't be hard on yourself. That's it. I mean, is there anything else you'd like to impart, or are we good?
Yeah, I think the only other thing would just be bring in that element of mindfulness, which is yoga is mindfulness, and just start to become aware of the foods that you are eating on a day-to-day basis, moment-to-moment basis, and how are you fueling yourself with food, with the relationships that you're in, with your habits. How much social media are you on? How often are you watching TV? Things that may not quite be serving you, and bring it back to your breath. Bring it back to just taking a walk outside. The basics, because those basics, that's what we really want to scale back and just keep things as simple as possible to lower that stress and to get to that healthier state of being.
Wow, I feel healthier just listening to all this. So I'm going to go out and do it, and I hope everyone else is going to too, and have a lovely day. Thank you, A Shared Universe Podcast Studio. Thank you, Ming. Thank you so much, Lauren, for being here.
Of course.
And everyone, enjoy the rest of your day.